Here. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be in front of you. Great big house, so sound goes out and bounces back and nobody hears anything. That's great too. I was listening to the previous people that were talking about the police and the rules and regulations and things like that. I know this is the meeting of the freest minds and the largest meeting of free minds in the world. And as I was thinking about what to say, is there a free mind? I mean, are our minds free? Are we programmed by something up there to follow our fate? Or are we programmed by mom and dad at a very early age? So is there free will? Can we make choices? That was one person who made a choice to say yes. So I thought, what'll I say to you all? What can I possibly add? The police thing was fascinating, but that's black and white. Excuse me. But what about things that aren't black and white? What about amorphous questions like love or justice or when to stand on a principle or compromise? Yeah. Do we have free will about that? Do you freely say, I'm going to stand on my principle now? Or do you say, well, let's see, how can we have a meeting of minds here? There was a news thing recently about a group of women in Silicon Valley who were looking for a capital. They were starting up their business. And in their search for money, they were approached by people who would give them money, but the men said, you got to sleep with me. And they said no. And the guy said, well, I have your back. I want you on your back, but I'll have your back. And they said no. They were looking it was like a couple of $1 million. And all they had to do was go to bed with the guy. And they said no. Wow, that is really standing on principle. I mean, I don't know about some of you men, but if an attractive woman said to me, I'd compromise, you know. There is a mantelpiece in our house. I was going to say my house, but it's our house. And this mantelpiece is like a place to show something. I mean, it's a portico. It's a place. It's a frame. Something needs to go on that mantelpiece. And I was in Johannesburg some years ago, and everywhere I go to work, I try and find local artists and see if I like their work, and sometimes I purchase it. So Johannesburg is really it's potentially a violent place. I was shooting 20 miles outside of Johannesburg, and they said there's this great sculptor in the city. So two men with AK-47s take me in a car, and we park in the middle of Johannesburg, and then one guy gets out with a gun, and I get out, and the other guy gets out with a gun, and we go upstairs, and I meet the gentleman whose name I can't remember, and he's a superb artist. There was a piece there made of local semi-precious, it's not jade, but it's like jade, so there's a name for it, and he had sculpted a rhinoceros. Beautiful lines, heavy, the horn and peak there, and solid. It was about this big, and it just suggested the enormity of that rhino. I bought it, had it shipped. Then I said to my wife when it arrived, look at this on the mantelpiece. And I placed it on the mantelpiece, and it was perfect. Perfect. And she said, yeah, we could put a candlestick there and a candlestick there. It's my principle. It was my principles. I bought this thing to go on the mantelpiece alone. That's where it belonged in all its heaviness and all its artistry. A stick there and a stick there. Liz, it's my principle. It's my mantelpiece, Liz. So we stuck the two things there. So compromise and principle. Now let me tell you a little story that I lived through a few years ago making a movie. And all I'm doing, see, I don't think you can teach anybody anything. Maybe you can teach ABCs and 2 times 2 when children are very young. But when it gets to these other things, where it's an impression, it's an opinion, all I felt that I could do in all my life, adult life, was to say to my children and my grandchildren, here's what I think, and if it applies to you, you can take it. So that's the way I'm approaching this story. If it applies to you, okay. So, Leonard Nimoy, my dear friend, playing the part of Spock in Star Trek. We started making movies, and Leonard, through some brilliant negotiation, got to be able to, on the 4th movie of Star Trek, got to be able to direct it, which meant, because of our contracts, I would direct the next movie. And the studio, were so generous about making these movies that when it came to be my turn to make Star Trek V, they said, what's the story you want to tell? And I said, wow, imagine being asked, what story of a movie do you want to tell? I just came back from shooting 6 weeks in Europe on a show we called Better Late Than Never. You may have seen it last year. Desultory applause for... But that show, we were asked, where in the world would you like to go? Imagine being asked by a rich studio, where would you like to go in this world? We went to Europe. So I'm asked, what story do I want to tell? Now, I am now of the age when I'm thinking about death a lot. I don't mean dying in front of an audience, I mean dying. And what happens to you? You know? Hey, we're all free thinkers here. Do we go up and the man with the long beard says, let's see, how good were you? Do you pass, or do you go down to hell? I mean, what happens when you die? That question has pursued me, I think, ever since I was very young, and I was born in Montreal and went to a summer camp into the mountains, Laurentian Mountains, one summer. My parents sent me up there. And for the first time, the city boy looked up into the sky, and I saw the myriad of stars. And I fell over backwards. I was overwhelmed in awe of what the universe is like. So the question I answered from my heart was, let's have Star Trek go in search of God. Whoa. Man down front. That was the impression everybody had. Whoa. Whoa. Star Trek goes in search. And not only that, you guys, I've got the plot. I've got the one-line plot. Okay? We go in search of God and find the devil. Ooh. And the devil is able to, things will work out, grab McCoy and bring him down into the hole in hell by the river Styx. Meanwhile, Kirk and Spock have had a fight. They've had a real strong disagreement during that early part of the movie. But when their buddy is dragged down, together they go. They grab McCoy and they rush up there and they rush towards the Enterprise. And now the mountain explodes. And granite rocks come to life, breathing fire and smoke. And they pursue us, and we get into the ship, and we take off, and we're saved. What a show! And everybody's going, whoa. Whoa, boy, that's a really good one. Who would write it? They asked me. Who would write it? I've been reading the novels of Eric von Lostbader. He's not as popular now, but in those years, he was very popular. He wrote about, if I remember correctly, a Japanese American in Japan feeling out of place both in Japan and in America. Does that sound familiar? Eric von Lustbader, I said, I want him to write it. I call him, Mr. Lustbader, I'm coming to New York to ask you to come out. And I go to New York and we walk the streets of New York. And I said, Eric, and then the rocks explode and they come and they fight and then God exists and there's a devil. And how did the devil get? And Eric is saying, my God, what a great plot. Whoa! He says, that's a great plot. I want to do it. I got a popular novelist to write my screenplay. You understand that? That's a bigger whoa. Now I come back to the studio. And the first question by the powers that be was, who's God? Not who is God, but who's God? I don't know. Who's God? He's God. He's Zeus. He's whatever the Norwegian guy is. He's the Hindu. He's the Brahmin. He's the Protestant. He's Catholic. He's Judaistic. I mean, he's God. Yeah, but you're going to show a God, and we'll alienate a vast number of people. I don't know. No, man. We'll put a God together. We'll have a tornado and revolving, and it'll be all the faces of God. No, Bill. You can't tell the story of God. Oh, my goodness. Principle. What do I do now? If I say, I'm going to tell the story of God, Nimoy will direct the pictures. Somebody else will direct the picture of their own choosing. I've got an opportunity. What am I going to do? I don't know what to do. I don't know whether to stand on principle or compromise. And somebody says, what happens if it's an alien who thinks he's God? Oh. That's a compromise I think I could make. An alien who thinks he's God, then we see the devil who thinks he's the devil. Okay. I said, okay. I compromised my principle. I didn't realize then the whole movie lost its energy. Looking back, I now realize that if it isn't God, and if it isn't the devil, and it's a little dog that thinks it's lost its power. The power is, God. But I didn't, in my desire to accomplish, it's my desire to have the job that I compromised my principle. And that then started a snowball of compromise. Next thing, I say to Leonard, Kirk and Spock are going to have, no, Spock wouldn't fight. My character wouldn't do that. What? It's a fiction. We can make the character do it. No. Spock wouldn't do that. He was standing on principle. He wouldn't do that. Well, what am I going to do? If he wouldn't do that, what is the Spock in the book? What am I going to do? I invent a character, the brother of Spock. And work that out, and then he comes in. He's a mesmerizing preacher in the desert, and he's able to affect men's minds, and he affects the ship. But Spock wouldn't do that. Okay, I made another character. I said, we need 40 horses to come riding in, 40, and I can make them look like 400. I'll shoot 40 there, 40 there, 40 there. Put them together, we'll get. You can only have 20. Okay, I got 20 horses. Then I said, okay, the ending. The ending is the rocks of the mountain explode, and all these rocks come to life, spewing fire and spewing smoke, and they pursue, and the producer says, well, how many rock men? I said, I don't know. Let's talk to the special effects people. So I talked to the special, here's what I want: smoke and fire and then steaming and running. So they come back later and they said, it's $250,000 a suit. $250,000, well, I'll do 10. Okay, I'll get 10 rock men and I'll shoot 10 there and I'll shoot. And this producer says, that's $2.5 million in a $30 million budget. Are you sure you want to spend all your money on that? I said, no, I'm not. Maybe not 10. I'll do 5. I can do 5. I'll do 5 exploding rocks. But let me see. I want to see those rock men before we start. Well, we start filming. No rock men. We're almost at the end. We're almost at the time when we're going to shoot. The night before, we're going to shoot the rock men. Guy says, we're ready to show you the suit that evening. We're in the desert. And out comes a stuntman in a black suit with a couple of rocks pasted on his back, and he walks out. I said, well, show me the fire. He said, the special effects guy said, well, there's no fire because we tried the fire and it burned a stuntman's face. So there's no fire. I said, well, show me the smoke. He said, look, there's the smoke. And coming out, forgive me, the asshole of the little animal was a little wisp of smoke. And these guys had forgotten about the diurnal winds, breezes in the desert. Desert heats up, cools off in the evening. The hot air rises and it causes a breeze. So whatever little smoke was coming out of, forgive me, the asshole, was being blown away. And then I saw 2 tubes leading away from the animal around there and around a little bend around. And I followed the 2 little tubes, and there are 2 special effects guys smoking cigarettes and blowing smoke. $250,000. It didn't work. I had no ending, and I'd run out of money. So we put together some rough stuff, and it never worked. I didn't really manage the funds right, but it didn't matter. Once I had given up my principle of God, nothing worked, no matter how much I compromised. Now, I don't know what the lesson is on that, but those ladies who turned those guys down has entered my mind, and I'm thinking that's something I should have learned. Anyway, that's my story about standing on principle or compromising. There's nobody can tell you what to do. Somewhere inside of us is a chord, a pleasant chord that plays when something is right, depending on all your free minds, and you will make the right decision for you, not necessarily for me, but for you. And that's really what I have to tell you this evening. Thank you. I get the big chair.